Music is a superpower. I'm convinced it's a superpower. You can control culture with it, which is why the enemy loves music. Music, by nature, is the sound of spirit, of the spirituality, of the spirit realm. The only thing that would shut me up when I was bawling as a baby was just turning on music. I would literally walk around saying out loud to myself that I am a piece of trash. But it was all because of this issue. I just had a pornography issue. It wasn't even anything other than just a simple sin issue, which is not easy, but that's simply what it was. It's evil. It's evil. It devalues everyone involved. That's a debate in our society right now, but it shouldn't be. Your flesh is too strong for you to be able to manage it in isolation.
If your music does not get used for the kingdom, it will get used to tear it down. Welcome to From Work to Worship, where we explore how people's calling becomes their calling card, how vocation fuels occupation, how to work can be to worship when we understand who we were made for. So let's get to work on understanding what we were made to do. This is the testimony of musician, friend, and my business partner, Nehemiah Williams, and this is From Work to Worship.
If you actively and consistently pursue whatever you can conceive to be the highest good, then you will find God, because they're the same thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
5,
and that's been my experience.
4, 3, 2.
I don't wanna die young. I don't wanna die young. But if I do, I hope I'm true. And if I leave it up to you, I hope you let some people know that I've been worked hard.
So this ministry switched, and I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I found out later that the leadership of the ministry, they were compromised. They hadn't overcome some of their own personal issues, and I will tell you what those are, but I'm not going to name the ministry. Anyway, they hadn't overcome some of their own personal ministries, and that put a whole new shade on my experience at that ministry house that I only found out in retrospect what it was. So the leader of the ministry started inviting random people who didn't seem to fit the mission, the original, because we sat down and we had a meeting about exactly what everybody living in this house, all them in, what process they were supposed to go through and what things they were to do in order to thrive or be held accountable in this house. Very structured and very, it was like, we all share a common goal, and you don't need to be here if you're not in agreement with it. So once people started coming into the house that were not in agreement with the mission, they weren't aligned with the mission, they weren't putting in the same effort. And honestly, the things that they struggled with, like one dude had clear, like almost like either mental health issues, like extreme mental health issues. Actually, there's two. There was one dude who literally would only talk to himself and talk to the wall, stand in a dark room in the corner and just talk to the wall. And then you could talk to him and he would talk to you, but then he would go off in isolation and he was dealing with some other voices. Then there's this one guy who would just talk and say nonsensical, unrelated, crazy things randomly, like serious mental issues, being invited into the house and not following the program at all. And so, but they needed a place to stay, so they were invited to live.
Oh man.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of people like this. This one older guy who was a great guy, he was cool. I had an interesting relationship with him, cool guy to talk to, but he did not fit the same persona, like people who needed to mature. This guy was mature, but he had fallen on hard times and he had his own struggles, and he needed a place to stay. So it kind of turned into a house for just people who needed somewhere to stay, but not people who are there for the same reason as all of the original members. And
I wanted to, like, I feel like there's this perception, like, Jesus just, everybody's invited. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you forsake the lifestyle of before and follow me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then there's this pride that comes, I'm saving people. I'm saving people. I can let them in. It's like, you're here to deliver people to repentance.
Yeah.
So that they can receive grace.
Yeah.
You know? But without that, it's just like, okay, now we got a guy in here talking to the wall. What are we going to do about that?
Right. He was just there. You know?
You're inviting evil into the house that must be rebuked and repented of so that one can receive grace.
Right. And then there was actually multiple guys who had came in. So there are guys who had came into the house, and they had come from a homosexual lifestyle, and they were good people. I'm not going to harp on that, but like, that's where they came from, and they were in the house, and, you know, homosexual people have a lot of hard decisions to make if they want to come into the body of the Christ. And one of the things that they have to do, you know, is decide if they want to continue with their homosexuality and still try to follow Christ. These particular guys, there's at least two that I can think of, they were not deciding to forsake their homosexual ways. And so, but I knew, because some of the leadership of the ministry had come from that. They had come from that kind of a lifestyle, and they decided to forsake that. The top leader, he was one of those people, and he had a family, wife, kids, and, you know, a lot of the people who he attracted were people who, you know, had same-sex attraction and formerly homosexual. And so it was clear that that was a part of his ministry, to help people like that, you know, to find their formation in Christ. And but it was clear that some of these guys were not trying to forsake their homosexual ways, you know, still dealing with old relationships. And I wondered at the time why they were there, but in the end, in early 2017, the ministry fell apart, and the house was totally forsaken. Everybody who was living there, the essential members, they just stopped coming. They moved in somewhere else. Everybody on the leadership board stepped down, and I had no idea what was really going on, but it was clear that it was scandalous. And I found out much later, in retrospect, that the leader who we all looked up to was compromised. He was fraternizing with some of those people, you know. And he had a particular brand of struggle where he liked to also flip guys who did not have homosexual tendencies, but he liked to groom, you know.
Oh man.
And so some of the guys who were my brothers at that time fell prey to that. And so yeah, it was a rough thing to face in retrospect, because my experience in that ministry was nothing but positive. It was an incredible time for me. But it was clear that something had switched. And I know, because I know how things work, that dark atmosphere and that change, it was almost like the grace and the anointing had lifted. It just wasn't the same anymore. And I know for a fact that it was because the compromise had found its way in. And from the top down. And we didn't know what was going on. We all trusted, but I remember...
It goes back to what you're saying, where you have to live a life contrary to... And yeah, there's something Yeah, it's difficult because there is grace, right? But yeah, there must be complete repentance.
Yeah.
So you left there.
Yeah. And the other thing is, this guy, he was acting as a leader, but he was not ordained, so he didn't have any oversight. We thought he was. But he didn't tell us the backstory and the updates behind his ordination. He actually took us to a ceremony that we all thought was his ordination, but that was just a service. That was not his ordination, and what would have been his oversight told him to slow down. You're not ready for leadership, but he didn't tell us any of that. He just went forward with what he was doing. So yeah, fell apart. Yeah.
So, you have to be ready for it. Psalm 23. I was reading that, and it's David's whole life. Doesn't start out as a king, and he's anointed at 12 or something, right? Samuel, the prophet, doesn't become a king till later. He still does a lot of great things along the way, and even as a king, he stumbles. So it's it's not that simple to go, I just gotta go.
Yeah, and a lot of people, he probably thought and justified his leadership off of those stories, Like, if you read a lot of the leaders and judges, they were compromised in different ways. People like Samson, people like Gideon. Like, if you read their stories, there's a lot of compromise going on there. And Judges in particular is about all the different leaders and how they contributed to the degradation of Israel and how it just got worse and worse. The book is actually a tragedy because it just gets worse and worse. And it starts off coming from Joshua, who was a great leader and who carried the mantle of Moses very well. But he told them, just like Moses told them, do not do what is right in your own eyes. And it even starts off a lot of these chapters saying that
in those days,
everyone did what was right in their own eyes.
Yeah.
And so this is what happens when you don't obey the letter of the word, scripture. So anyway, after the ministry fell apart, I landed back at home with my parents in Culver City. That's what
Shout out to Culver City, right out that window. I love this place.
Yeah, Culver City's a great place.
Hometown heroes.
Yes, Paul. Yeah. Anyway, I landed back at the house, but this time I had a whole different set of values and a different character. A lot of good seeds had been planted. So it wasn't long before I found some work, got involved in something, and that work led to more work, and I ended up working for the city of Culver City.
Where did the trucking? That's not yet?
That's not yet.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, I ended up in the city of Culver City, and at that time, because the ministry had fallen apart, and because I was so involved in a deeply spiritual ministry, I had to find my way back, because the ministry I was a part of was very insular. It had to be, because of the leadership and some of their transgressions. They had to make us insular in order to protect us from hearing about the truth of what was going on within our borders that we couldn't see. Those of us who weren't on the leadership board. And so when I came out of that, I had to find my way back to some sort of balance from a deeply insular, fanatical, spiritual involvement. But the community that I had when I was a part of that ministry was something that I immediately started to miss. And I found myself back in more isolation. And it's really true that when you are isolated, that you're setting yourself up for a fall. It's too strong. It's too strong. Whatever, your flesh is too strong for you to be able to manage it in isolation. That's another point blank period right there. Your flesh will overtake you in isolation. So, so I started, some of that cycle, it came up, but at least I had some good seeds that were planted in order to fight against it. And I immediately found work, and I immediately found another church. And I had a couple of homies from the ministry who decided to join me in going to this new church. And it was really great because that homie, we had invited him to our house because we had Sunday dinners at our house a lot. And at that Sunday dinner, he met my sister and they started dating. And he was a great friend of mine. I trusted him. He was a great guy. And him and my sister developed a relationship. And eventually he became my brother-in-law. And that was an awesome thing. That was a great thing. It is awesome to have a guy like him as my brother-in-law. So that was a really great thing. He was one of the few people who decided to join me in searching for a new church, new community. And it was cool because he was a really confident guy. He loved to talk to people, very charismatic. And so at that time, one thing I wanted to develop, maybe it was like an offshoot of my need for community, but I wanted to develop the ability to just talk to anybody, develop connections, be friends with people. And especially, I wanted to talk to girls. I wanted to talk to girls. Now, that desire could have easily been corrupted. And I think there was a deeper, darker part of me that was flirting with the idea of flirting. But the truth is, and this is honestly a blessing, I never had any desire, no desires for casual relationships. I think a part of the reason why is because I had already learned that through pornography that meaningless sexual engagement leads to pain. So I had no desire to just try to get laid, play that game. But I did have a desire to try to make significant connections with cute girls. But it was just a validation thing. Like, if I can strike up a good conversation with a cute girl, get her number, get her attention, make her laugh, all the things that guys do in order to get laid. If I could actually do that stuff without actually getting laid, then, hey, I feel good about myself. It was like I can pat myself on the back. But it was honestly just its own form of seeking validation. And when I figured that out, because I was a lot more mature, I could immediately see that, okay, this is just me trying to get a hit of validation from a meaningless source. I still enjoyed the skill of it all, but I understood that it was meaningless. It's kind of vanity, And so I was like, this skill will be useful when I find my wife, somebody who I actually want to be with. I'll have the skills in order to go get them. But I'm not going to get addicted to seeking this kind of validation. People with addiction tendencies always have the potential to replace one addiction for another. And I was like, I see the connection there. So, that didn't go that far, but it was interesting that was a skill that I pursued at that time. What it really was is the pursuit of charisma. Personally, I value charisma. I value the ability to connect with people, to hold attention and have great conversations, It's
like this.
Right. Because, and here's going back to the reason why this is important that I discovered later is that I value relationship above all.
Well, I think I shared this with you. There is no value outside of relationship, because value itself is defined by one's relationship to another. So we're learning about sales and business and all that. It's like, this iPhone is worth whatever I'm willing to pay for it based on the alternative. You know? So it's that lady giving me $2,000 because she said my show helped her understand her son. She didn't value that at $2,000. She valued that at whatever I needed to keep doing that for other people. And that's just the exact number I needed to hit. So whatever she could give to get me for it, she would have given as much as possible that she could give in that moment to get me to do that, because of value with her relationship, the value of the relationship with her son. Having an opportunity for conversation is priceless. You would trade it all for everything. Like
especially if you're used to being isolated.
Yeah. Or I think I brought up to you a friend of mine who works with computers and all that stuff, and I needed help on like fixing a hard drive, and so he shared with me this story about how some guy spilled coffee on his hard drive, and he said, "Can you fix my hard drive? It has $300,000 worth of pornography on it."
My God.
So I'll pay you $60,000 to fix, so I can get my $300,000 of pornography back. What if I cured your pornography addiction and deleted a $300,000 expense from your life? How much would you pay me for that? Probably a lot more than just $300,000.
I would have,
because that's a recurring expense.
Yep. I actually figured out how to keep my problem pretty cost effective, but not really, because the time suck is more valuable than whatever price it would have been, and energy that the time and energy that were spent and lost on that issue, it would have been more value than any price that I would have paid for all that pornography, which I didn't.
And you're devaluing yourself as an asset. You're depreciating the value of yourself over time, which is just like, you don't even know how much you're worth. And
that doesn't only manifest to other people, but the way you see yourself is that value. That devaluation is also costly too, because there were times in my life, especially in some of the next seasons, where I would literally walk around saying out loud to myself, out of earshot of everybody else, that I am a piece of trash. But it was all because of this issue. I just had a pornography issue. It was a sin issue. It wasn't even anything other than just a simple sin issue, which is not easy, but that's simply what it was.
Yeah. So I remember talking to someone who made significantly less than their wife, but their wife married them. Why? Because they saw the value of their potential, the upside, right? They say, I want to link my finances with your finances, but I don't make as much money as you. Yes, we're going to share, because the value that you provide is much greater than just your income. And the lies of, I'm not worth that. Then you go, okay, how am I ever going to find a wife? Because I'm not making X amount of money, and my potential, my gifting is valued down here. How the wife's going to buy this, partner with this? It's like, no, you have so much more value that you don't even understand. And that's what people see in you. And then they go, you're gifted and talented and this. And you're like, no, I'm a piece of garbage. It's so insidiously evil and untrue.
Right. So pornography, that's why pornography is evil. Pornography is evil. That's a debate in our society right now, but it shouldn't be. It's evil. It devalues everyone involved. The only thing it does make for some of the people involved is money. But people don't get it, that there are there are 5 things that I recognize is more valuable than money.
If this is your first time joining us at PPDK Productions, we want to thank you for listening and invite you to go ahead and subscribe to our Substack at ppdkproductions.com. That's ppdkproductions.com, and receive 1 free week of life-giving stories, weekly content recaps, and monthly content maps. There is nothing more tragic than a man lacking purpose. That's why we're starting with our stories, because that's what we know. Living to tell the tale is our purpose. We're doing it first, so you can too. Go to ppdkproductions.com and subscribe. If you like what we have to say but don't like how we look, then please consider making a monthly contribution so we can make our stories look beautiful. Now let's get back to Nehemiah Williams.
Your belief is more valuable. Your voice is more valuable. Your time is more valuable. Your energy is more valuable. And then there's one last thing. Your attention. Your attention is more valuable than your money. And attention, your belief, your time, your energy, your voice. Pornography decimates at least 3 of the 5 of those things. And
it devalues not only the value of each component of the relationship, but it decimates the integrity of your ability to form relationships in general. And that is one of the things one of the sort of epiphanies that I got in prayer was, from now on, stop judging your life off the intensity of your relationships. And from now on, only judge based on the integrity of your relationships. The strength. Have 10 strong, incredibly deep and strong ones rather than one extremely intense one. Yeah.
That's game right there, bro. Heck yeah, bro. So, that was an interesting time. Also, because that was me practicing my manhood in the real world. That was one of the upsides of me going out there and being social and talking to people, trying to develop relationships and connections, especially with women, you know, doing it in a healthy manner, because I didn't want to be an F-boy. Y'all know what that means. I didn't want to be out here trying to get laid all the time. Plus, I love going to church. So that's where I was meeting women. I was not about to be one of these church, predators, just trying to
keep your eyes on Jesus, right. Not on the.
But even in the community of church, just being a wolf in sheep's clothing, like, what a loathsome position to be in, And some people don't mean to, but their flesh just flares up when they see an opportunity, because a lot of people in church are still vulnerable, just like I was sitting in church, but still in a position where personally I'm, but people are vulnerable in different ways. Some people don't have the ability to stop flirting with women because they just happen to be in this position where they know all the skills and have all the opportunities to draw women in that way. And as much as they have to take responsibility for not doing those things, their flesh, if, they might be in a position to where in their flesh, that's exactly what they're going to do. You know what I'm saying? And so, these are all just sin issues, you know what I'm saying? That Jesus, let's be real, decimates, you know what I'm saying? When you really get in the zone with your relationship with Christ, decimated. Like, it's literally impossible for you or anybody, certainly me, to engage in these sin issues when you're right with the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
I was listening to a podcast, and someone who used to be a Satanist, she was talking about she would go in the spirit, like astral project, and go tempt Christians. Like, that was her assignment. The demons told her, go do that. And she said that she would encounter Christians that were actively praying, and there was like a blue shield just over them. She couldn't even penetrate it or go. And Jesus says to pray unceasingly. And people are, I can't pray all the time.
Keep your shield up, bro.
Just keep your Seek ye the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness in all things.
Shield of faith to protect you from all the arrows of the enemy.
Yeah, I'm constantly, if I'm in the name of Jesus, away from me, you know, and all the time. And it's if I take a 5-second gap, that's time, you know, for the enemy to attack. It's like that quick. It's like speed chess. If I don't, the strategy, easy. In the name of Jesus, like, bam, that's the same strategy every time. This. If I forget for 1 second, I go, oh, why am I doing this? I follow down my thoughts. I don't even need to indulge the thought. Just bam, away from me.
Yeah.
In Jesus' name. Someone told me I could do that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. That's cool. So in this time in my life, I got involved with a like another fanatical ministry, but they were fanatical about evangelism, but like they had very like strong insular community and fanatical beliefs, like very extreme. And I had just gotten out of that. So I was like, I love being around these guys because I understand what this community is like, but I'm not going to follow them down this rabbit hole. I'm not going to join their mission. So they tried to recruit me and I said no. But on the other hand, there was this mentor who approached me. This man, he worked for the city of Culver City, but he loved to like mentor young dudes who seemed like they had potential. And he saw me and he talked to me and he was like, I'm going to mentor you. He just told me, like, we're going to mentor you. And so I immediately recognized that it was another godsend because I needed to continue my growth. You know what I'm saying? I needed to continue my growth. And he was a method, a way for me to do that. So I started meeting with him on a weekly basis, and he would give me assignments, and I would try my best to attend to those assignments. But my personal cycle of negativity with pornography and that whole cycle would decimate or distract or throw me off of my ability to do his assignments. So one time I just told him, listen, one of my major issues that's blocking me from attending to the assignments that you give me, not that I don't want to do them, I just have this problem. I have a problem. And he told me that you need to figure this out, find a support group, find something, find a community, something. You need to attack this particular issue. Just address that problem. And so I did. I found a 12-step program that was specifically for pornography. And I actually want to shout this out. SPA, Sex and Porn Addicts Anonymous. SPA. There's look up SPA. It's a really great 12-step program. I don't care what you believe. You can believe anything. Go into this community and get help for this issue. It doesn't matter who you are.
12-step program. And they have like they have a, what's it called?
It's
WhatsApp.
SPAA-recovery.org.
We got it up on the screen real quick.
They have in-person meetings. They have Zoom meetings. Doesn't matter where you live around the world. They have it all. Get help. If you have this issue, get help. This is a good place to go. This is a place that I have gone and still go. So I went to this ministry. This isn't a ministry. This is just a 12-step program. I went to this program and I started to address this issue at the core, at the root. 12-step programs are really good at getting to the root of that particular addiction. Whatever it is, alcohol, narcotics, whatever. But for me, porn. So it's getting at the root of that issue. And what they teach you is the lifestyle that's truly needed in order to live against this particular disease. So there are people in this group who have been sober from pornography for years, which I didn't even know was possible until I came here. years haven't even looked at the stuff. You know, some people say it's just something you live with. It's up and down battle. Some people say that, like, you know, it's impossible. Every man is a dog. We all have needs. Talking to some of these people, a lot of those lies got broken off, because I've seen people who come from all walks of life who were getting sober, which is a little different from getting free, but sobriety is the next best thing, and it's honestly 100% worth it. You know what I'm saying? You
said sobriety is different from being
freedom.
Free.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So being free, being healed from this issue, and it is different. It's something, and it's possible to get free in this program, but it has to do with your relationship with God.
This is what because I've been in 12-step programs with other people, not necessarily as an addict, but I had to go to a lot of them. And I think that a higher power can get you sober. The highest power can get you free.
And this is the truth.
And it was started in Christ, but they wanted to reach more people, so they said higher power. Yeah. Cool. Accept the higher power, because you need something bigger than yourself. Yeah. But if you want to be free.
Yeah. So I'm going to break it down to you. Like, this is part of the game, that this is a revelation in my life that I've gotten that really honestly helps me to navigate life with so much clarity. But there are 5 levels of being: your material self, your physical self, and these are all layered on top of each other. Your material self, so that's 100% who you are, but not just who you are, but what you own, that represents you. In the real world, like materially, you can touch it. Then your physical self, that has all to do with the body. And then underneath that is your mental self. That's the middle layer. And honestly, it's a terminal. Your mental self is the terminal, the landing point between the real world physical stuff that we can all perceive, and then the deeper parts of yourself that only you can perceive, either in part or sometimes not at all, but it's 100% fully real. So the mental self, some people have explained it as it's the connection between heaven and earth. Is your mind, is your connection between heaven and earth. It's you, but it's a terminal, just like the airport.
It's like, or it's like I'm doing all this tech stuff to set up this podcast. Is where all the power gets routed through. Yeah. So that we can see what's on the graphics card and on the CPU.
Everything that has anything to do with you gets routed through your mind. Even the spiritual attacks, we're getting there. So underneath the mental self is the emotional self. So it's deeply connected to your mental self, but it's deeper than your mental self, because it's actually a more significant part of who you really are underneath what you know about yourself. And so much about how you live hinges upon what you know, which is why knowledge is important. But your emotional self is a truer part of you. A part of my problem is I always stuffed my emotions. I never valued the pursuit of who I was by way of the emotion. Like trying to know myself by way of my emotions. I was always like, I can just figure out a solution with my mind.
Because we're sensitive.
Emotions go away.
Because we're, both of us, exceptionally sensitive. But that's an emotional sensitivity.
And honestly, both of us gifted in different ways, mentally or intellectually, you might say, because that's an aspect of your mind, is your intellectual self, like your intellectual abilities. And both you and I are gifted in those areas, so we lean on that strength. But at the expense of your emotional self, that's when you start to split yourself in half and one part of you is against the other, or you stuff this part but it still affects you, but from a darker place that you can't perceive, so you don't know why you do what you do, but you do it and you can't stop it. That's all coming from your emotional self. And then at the deepest level, the fifth and the lowest part of yourself is your spiritual self. And it takes a very special person to even be able to have sensitivity to perceive themselves and others on the spiritual level. Not everybody even can access that part. And actually, that's not true. Everybody can.
But it takes
God, because the reason why is because your spiritual self, your spirit is the battery that powers your life, and it is connected to God.
The source.
It's the source, but God is the source.
Yep.
But God gave each and every person a spirit so that they can be alive, and it powers all the other parts of you. It's where your life comes from. God and life are very synonymous.
That's why I say that my mission is to end mental health awareness as a joke. But what I'm saying is that you should not be aware of how you're feeling all the time.
Right.
Your check engine light should only be on when there's a problem. If it's always on, your engine needs replacing. And that's your mind. So,
yeah. Do you mean to say that's your spirit? Do you mean to say that's your spirit?
Well, your engine, I think, is that's like the mind, But the power that fuels the engine, that comes from the Lord. And so, if it's getting routed improperly, you got to fix something under the hood. Look what's going on. But awareness of the issue is not going to do anything. Fix the engine, then the light won't be on anymore. Get a new car. I think that resentment it's like crude oil. It will power the car, but it will deteriorate the engine at the same time, and you'll get to your destination and the car will be totaled. And now you got nothing to get back. Then you start putting some Holy Spirit in there, grace of Jesus, and all of a sudden, well, you get a new car. That's the first thing. You get a new car. You put that engine in there, and it's good as new. And now it's always going to work.
Right. That's an excellent point. That reminds me that, like I said, not everybody can perceive. No, it's true. Everybody can. But this is why you have to value your emotions. And this is, men especially are not taught to do this. We're actually encouraged through mainstream culture to stuff emotions and just be competent, But you can't do any of that at the expense of your emotions, because all of your greatest competence comes from emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. And the thing is, but spiritually, though, you cannot, unless you're a very special type of person, you cannot perceive the spiritual aspects of yourself and the world around you unless you are very aware and intentional about processing your emotions. Because anything spiritual, you will always feel it before you understand it. Because the layer between your mind and your spirit is your emotions. So you have to feel, which is why pornography is so toxic, because it makes you numb. That's one of the things it does. And any addiction, anything that gives you those quick hits of dopamine, they all make you numb. They're all stuffing your emotions or shutting them off, giving you a flat line when there should be ups and downs. But you need those ups and downs. You need to sit in them and feel them, because they are giving you vital information of your own spiritual state, or the spiritual state of your environment, or the spiritual state of the people you're connected to. And that's vital information that you need, but you have to be able to sit with your emotions. And a lot of people can't do that.
I think that exceptional gifting only comes with exceptional sensitivity. And because of that, it's a heightened capacity for pain, but it's also a heightened capacity for compassion and intuition and being able to sense things before they happen. But if you can perceive good things before they happen, you can also perceive threats before they happen. Now you go, God, I don't want this. I want to dull this sensitivity. I don't want to feel all this stuff. Okay, let me take away your gift then. And you go, but now I can't do music. Now life
feels meaningless.
Now life is meaningless. He's like, I gave you the sensitivity so you can sense what to do with your gift.
Yeah.
And we try to take this away from me, take this away from me, take this away from me.
Right.
And we lose everything.
Right.
And
a lot of this, going one level higher, a lot of all of this is based off the fact that we have no knowledge about things like emotional intelligence. But the key to, like, for example, I said earlier, if you pursue the things that are most good to you, you will find God. A lot of the reason why people don't find God is because they aren't even in touch with their emotions enough to know what is good. They're going based off what they're told is good, you know? And so they're trying this, try that. Everything is good in its own way. They're like, there's no hierarchy of good. Everything is good. It's just about what's good to you. But that's the same thing as doing what is right in your own eyes, which the Bible, the scripture specifically says is the pathway to all kinds of spiritual degradation. And so...
Yeah, I know Shia LaBeouf, when he was talking about Honey Boy, like, what's the biggest thing? And he's like, use your pain for the good of others. Do not waste it. I'm paraphrasing, but there's an interview with him and just got baptized, by the way.
No wonder he's off of the mainstream.
You gotta go on a sabbatical before you can come back, and
you gotta come back with a team.
Gotta build X-Men before you can go. No, yeah, but there's, your pain is meant to be endured with others.
Yeah. And so why did I get into all this?
Because now you're here telling your story, and you just proposed.
Bro, right now I'm in 2018. This is 2024.
How do we
got
get
6
here?
Years of time.
How do we get here?
Let me try to speed run through the last 5-6 years. I was talking about my mentor. So that mentor led me to get help. Getting that help over the next 5 years, it improved everything. So I have someone I admire deeply, and this man who I admire deeply said that the path to the greatest treasures in your life is through the darkest, is overcoming the scariest enemies, going through the darkest forest, like climbing the tallest mountain, like all the most intimidating things that you would like to avoid or cover up or whatever. If you can face them forthrightly and overcome them, all of the greatest treasures of your life will come from it.
And Jesus is the serpent. Is this Jordan Peterson that you know?
It is. I don't know why I'm trying not to say names for some reason.
We'll meet you one day, Jordan.
Yeah, one day.
He's the serpent. And the serpent was, the Israelites stared at it in the wilderness, gazing at the face of that which is the most.
Where is that? Because just in case people don't know that story, it's the story in Exodus.
But then Jesus recapitulates it.
Right. Later. So that was a foreshadowing story. A lot of people were getting bitten by poisonous snakes for some reason, and people were dying. And so Moses went to the Lord and said, what are we supposed to do about this situation? And he said, get a stick, put it in the town square, and
Put a bronze serpent.
put a bronze serpent on that stick or something like that. And whoever looks at the stick will not die from the bite. If they get bit, look at the stick and they won't die. If they don't look at the snake, then they will die. And that was a foreshadowing of Jesus on the cross. Anybody who looks to the cross will be saved. Anybody who doesn't will die. And it's funny because even today, there is a symbol.
Yeah, this symbol right here.
I think it's a symbol of Kaiser Permanente or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the health groups. And yeah, it's Christ. It's all Jesus. And so
Jesus undergirds all of it, everything. The 12 steps. It was started by the Oxford Christian Fellowship. It's like it starts there, and we add layers of meaning on it, and we distill a little bit to reach bigger people, but it's undergird because he is meaning. He is truth. And that is what undergirds everything. And if you pursue, what did he say again? If you pursue the highest good,
you'll find him.
Yeah.
You'll find him. So from there, he told me to, get out your mom's house. Like, he told me to go find your own place. And I had a friend who invited me to move with him to New York. So I did. I went to New York and I lived there for 2 years in New York. In Brooklyn, I lived. And that was a whole experience because we went there to do music, and we did. It was so cool living with him because we did so much music. And while I was living there, I was doing my recovery program. I was becoming so integrated, but I did have my ups and downs with that because, you get into these recovery programs, but sometimes you relapse, Sometimes you relapse, and it's especially easy to relapse when your issue is pornography. With alcohol and drugs, there's something about it. Sometimes it's not as easy to relapse. Yeah. But if you're an addict, it's always kind of easy, If you look for it, you will find it. But pornography is particularly easy to access because we all have a phone, and so
it's in our music. It's in our advertising. It's in our Christmas playlists.
It's walking down the street.
It's in our music videos. It's everywhere.
It's in the park.
It's subliminally
some chick.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's yeah.
So, yeah, it's very easy to relapse or to like there's a lot of things pushing you to relapse with that kind of you seeking dopamine in that way and coping mechanism and all the addiction stuff. And so I had my ups and downs with it, but I would always come back to the program. But anyway, COVID-19 happened when I was in New York. And so for my second year of being in New York, no music was going on. I was just working really hard and, I wasn't really doing much else. And the best thing is that I was trying to work on an album with my roommate at the time, and he was going hard trying to make this album. But I personally, whenever I would get sucked back into my cycle of negativity, I would be unable to do music, especially with him. But whenever I would get out of it, I was gung-ho about doing music. So those two things for me are opposites. They don't mix, oil and water. And so eventually I knew I had to leave New York and come closer to family, given the COVID-19 situation. And, my finances were being sucked. I had significant savings. It was going to zero. So I left New York, came back home, and that whole time I struggled with the significance of all of my musical skill. What is the purpose of my music? this musical skill I have? Why do I think that I have the ability to do anything of any significance with music? You know?
We question that we should be doing this, and you went to Berkeley College of Music.
Yeah.
It's in like the insidious lies of the enemy.
Right. And everybody sees the greatness of my gift except me. I honestly think it's quite meaningless. Like, I would get cynical whenever I'd hear people say, I'm going to change the world with music. I'm like, bro, shut up, bro. You don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, like, I would even talk about it with my roommate at the time. Like, what do you see significant about, what keeps you going and driven towards it musically? And he would tell me certain things, but I couldn't find the depth of meaning that I needed. So after I came back from New York, I was like, I'm going to search for a different career path. I'm not going to do music because there's no meaning in it. I can't find it. So I became a trucker because a trucker was something I can do. I could save a bunch of money. I could make a bunch of money, and I can at the same time search for a new career path. And the truth is, my life as a trucker was very mediocre. Nothing worthwhile. It's an honest work, but it's simple. I could easily say that there's no meaning in that either. I'm just hauling loads cross country, here to there, dropping them off, picking them up, taking them. It's fine. It's something to do. But I was searching for a new career path, and I was getting nothing. But while I was on the road, I'd be on the road thinking about, different. I often think deeply when I'm on my own, and then I'd get these revelations where God spoke to me in my mind and said, the first thing he said was, this is what you can have if you surrender everything to me. And so I started to see a vision of my life, basically me living my best life. Because everything I've ever wanted coming true. It's too long. It's like a whole paragraph. It's like a picture is worth 1,000 words. It would take 1,000 words for me to tell you. But it was a picture of the exact life that I wanted, that I thought was worth living for. And he was like, you can have it all if you just surrender everything. And I was like, okay. Amen. And then, but I didn't know what was the vehicle. I was looking for a career path, like a vehicle to that life. What was going to make it come?
And the word career comes from vehicle. Like the etymology of the word career literally means a vehicle.
And I was driving a vehicle. No. So, yeah, I was searching for that. So in a couple months after that first revelation, God spoke to me again. And he basically just suggested, hey, what if you just gave everything to music? What if you just went all in with it? And I was like, because I knew that this was the Lord speaking, that's a whole nother conversation, but because I knew it, I was like, okay, God, challenge accepted. That's how I received it, as a challenge. So I was in Independence, Missouri, and I went to the nearest guitar center. I parked the truck, went to the guitar center. I bought musical instruments, amps, everything I needed to just play music. And so while I was driving the truck, I would just sing all day long. And when I stopped the truck at the end of the day, I would just play music until I went to sleep, woke up, repeat the process. And immediately I could feel in my emotions and in my spirit that, all of the meaning in life is routed through music for me. There's no access to any kind of a meaningful life except through music. And as I look back on my life, it only became more true because music has been something that has stood out for me since I was literally a baby, by testimony of my mother, telling me about the only thing that would shut me up when I was bawling as a baby was just turning on music. I was an easy child because she would just need to turn on the music and I would shut up, you know?
Did you know that podcast you sent me where the guy said like he sees angels? Mm-hmm. He said the angels can't make new music. Mm-hmm. They can only sing what's already out there. Mm-hmm. So when humans make music, they're like flocking to them because they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. We can only sing what's already made.
Right.
So they want us. They're like, make some music.
Right. Interesting. Brings whole new meaning to the term worship leader. But that being said, I started to understand that this is the meaning of my life. Is music. Deeply connected. So I'm going in this direction. There's no other career path. It's music. I have to figure out how to do music. And so knowing that and fully accepting that, I need to understand what music was. Why is music this significant thing? Why is it a universal language? What influence does it have? You know? And so I started to write down every definition of music that I heard, because music is actually really hard to define. What is music? Everybody's going to give you a different answer. But one definition that I really liked is that music by nature is the sound of the spirituality of the spirit realm. You know what I'm saying? It's like music by nature is spiritual, which is why it has such a profound effect on your emotions, because it gets underneath your emotion. It's also why if you want people to sing a melody, all you do is have to sing it around them, and then they'll just start singing it naturally, you know? Especially if they know the song and they like it too. It resonates with them, so they start singing it too. It's called an earworm. But what I learned is that if you want to implant a message or a seed, an idea in somebody's mind, just add some music to it. It's part of the reason why if you put a melody to any fact you need to memorize it, you immediately memorize it way faster than you ever would have by repeating it over and over again, or whatever technique of memorization. Just make music out of it.
The jingles are propaganda, which comes from propagate, to propagate an idea.
And so one of the superpowers of music is I can put anything inside your soul if I just add good music to it. Music that resonates with you. I can put any message in your soul, because music doesn't speak to the mind. It doesn't speak to the heart alone. It speaks to the spirit first before everything else, which is why it resonates with your whole being. It's why whenever music is playing, you attach nodes to like track people's brain signature or the colors, or what parts of their brains are being lit up. The whole thing, it lights up your whole mind. It's because music is so deeply spiritual that it resonates with people's whole being right away.
You can actually trigger people with Alzheimer's to retrieve memories through music. So you literally put their long-term memory back online by tying it to music.
Yeah.
And so it's in our deepest recesses of our memory and the storytelling, and that's why movies are set to music. Yeah. That's why literally music almost controls time as it relates to you, because time is relative, right? Music literally controls time as it is relative to you, because if you play a 20-second clip, no music, that 20 seconds is a long freaking time to you. But you put some music to it, it doesn't even matter what it is. It takes 20 seconds and it literally minimizes it
by probably 30-40%. It seems like 12 seconds now because of the music. It just goes by. You're just so raptured in the scene with the music that it literally minimizes time. It shrinks time. Like, I saw Wicked the other day. Wicked is a dang near 3-hour movie. That movie went by in an instant because there's music, there's songs all throughout. And this is true with almost every movie because every movie has like a backtracking and a soundtrack and everything.
It's almost like you can layer experience in all 5 levels with a song. And that's why you
trigger it too.
Package. Yeah, you can. It's like oh my God. It's
you
like
can send people to a moment.
It's a compressed zip file of 5 layers, 5 different compressed files, audio, visual, everything. It's compressed into a song, a 3-minute clip. Send it to you. You watch it. You listen to it, bam, it unzips everything, and you experience that moment in all real time. I wrote that Christmas song with my uncle. We collaborate on it. We sort of have ideas, but it's got many, many different stories layered on top of each other, set to music. I did not know that I was inserting my story, the prodigal son, Tom's story, other people's stories. It just flowed out of it, and then you share that with someone. They go, oh, this is like my life, and it has so many things just layered on top of each other. I saw a movie. It's being executive produced by Joe Coy and produced and written by Ariana Bosco and the people from Palms Up Academy and Recess, Mike, and it's brilliant. But it took an entire open mic set and all the songs and pieces from them, and it layered them onto one person's story. And so each performer is like entering into the story of this person's life and playing different characters, using their storytelling and their pieces on top of it. And it's exactly what it feels like when you're listening to different people's things, because you insert your story onto you map it onto theirs. It was remarkable.
Yeah. So music is a superpower. I'm convinced it's a superpower. You can control culture with it, which is why the enemy loves music. Like people talk about Satan's original mission and how deeply musical it was, and how Satan used music to corrupt a third of the angels. And then they became fallen along with him. It was music that he used to warp those spiritual beings and turn them into his puppets, And so this is the power of music. But there's a lot of music in the world. And so all that being said, I started to understand the significance of my gifting, and I started to see it from a different perspective. So much of what you believe hinges upon what you know. Knowledge is important.
Your first encounter was through the teaching. Your second encounter was through song. And it seems to always follow that pattern with you. Teaching, song, somebody invests in your potential. So because you've received the call and they can see it, and so we have to map proper teaching on to the song. Otherwise we fall prey to sin because we just try to go out there and lead before we've been properly brought up in it so that we can use our gifts.
Yeah.
We love telling stories in person, and we're doing that live on stage in front of a crowd in my living room in Culver City on February 1st. We're taping a show called In Pursuit of Awe. The story of 2 exceptionally gifted, yet exceptionally sensitive men seeking to live a life well lived. Hear the personal testimonies of Nathanael Philip Abad Mosier and Nehemiah Williams as they navigate through thick and thin, seeking God along the way, performing music, poetry, jokes, and stories. The date is tentative, given the situation that is unfolding in LA. Our hearts go out to those who have lost their homes or loved ones. PPDK is currently looking to get involved by helping out on the ground and listening to people's stories, offering prayer, documenting their loss, and willingness to overcome. Find out more at ppdkproductions.com about what we're up to, and get your tickets at our website and click on the tab Live Shows. If you want to see what it looks like to attend a live taping inside a living room in Culver City, go watch our series Nathanael Philip Mosier Has Friends, also on our website ppdkproductions.com. That's ppdkproductions.com. Now let's get back to Nehemiah Williams.
You're giving me ideas for music to write now. One of my biggest wishes is to just, one thing I really hope is that we can monetize this whole thing enough for me to just do music. Only do music. I don't care how long it takes. If we can get this flowing to where I can only do music and you can only do what you're called to do, then I know that the creations that you and I, whoever else, and the Lord are going to partner in order to make, it's going to be massive. It's going to have a very significant impact. Going back to my testimony, so I decided to get out of the truck, to leave the trucking behind, because clearly it was not, I didn't need it anymore, because I knew what my life was for. I knew the path that I was going to take career-wise to not just have a significant life, but to have the life I was always meant to have. It was much deeper than whatever I was going to come up with for my alternative career path. So I left, I came to LA, and interestingly enough, as I got back involved in everything I was doing here in LA, I started going back to the church we go to now. I started figuring out ways to express myself musically. I got this, job, just things, just life, adulting, figuring out how to structure my life. One of the first things God saw fit to give me was, he saw fit to introduce me to the woman that I just got engaged to. And I don't know why God saw fit to do that at that time. But it was funny because of all the progress I had made with my recovery and the self-awareness that comes with that, I wasn't willing to lie to myself about the fact that I really liked this girl, because I would have easily have just tried to stuff those emotions and just act like nothing, even though I would have been interested in her, like surrounding myself with her while she was off, not taking our connection seriously. I don't know. I just wouldn't have been as direct as I was. I wouldn't have been as decisive as I was. And so I pursued her immediately. I told her that I liked her, and we've been together ever since. We just got engaged this past November. And
hopefully by the time this is up, some of that footage
will also be up.
Some of the footage of him proposing. We did a show.
It's up on her Instagram. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, like that has changed everything. One thing Jordan Peterson says is that the meaning in your life will always come by way of the responsibilities that you take on forthrightly and intentionally. Like your choice. You chose to take on this responsibility. That's what our relationship has been for me. And it's one of the most meaningful things in my life for that reason.
And Christ bare bore full responsibility on the cross. Why am I saying crossed? On the cross, so that we can yoke ourselves to him, so that we can assume maximal responsibility without having to suffer the full consequences that come with it. And it's like, obviously that's the best deal.
Yeah.
We get to have the full responsibility. That movie Free Solo, he said there's risk and there's consequence. He said, what I do is extremely consequential, because if I make a single mistake, I die. But the risk, I've made sure that it's very, very minimal risk. He's like, because I'm perfect at what I do. And so we get to do the most consequential, meaningful things through Christ, and we don't have to suffer the catastrophic risk associated with it, because he's erased all of it, and all we have to do is just follow him. But we have to surrender everything. He didn't even, that guy in Free Solo, he couldn't even tell his wife when he was going up there. And she was crying, and he made it to the top, and he said, I made it. She goes, oh my God. They're still married. He's still alive. 40 people died trying to do that, and he didn't die. And so, yeah, we can get up that hill, you know. It's so, it's exciting. It's the best possible, most interesting life that you could have. And it's like, you wake up every day, you're like, yeah, let's take on the next dragon, mountain.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. I'm engaged. Marriage, getting married is a freaking dragon. So many things, especially because it's expensive, but the planning process, like literally, it's hard to find venues that are even available on the date that you want to get married. We wanted to get married in April. That's pretty ambitious. Now we're most likely going to get married in August. And I don't like that. I really did not want to have a long engagement, but none of that is official. We're still figuring it out. But like,
some people do the ceremony, and then they have they get married, and they do it.
Y'all donate so I can get married at a decent price. Promise you I won't waste the money.
Yeah, we're in on this together. So if you subscribe to the Substack, there's $5 a month, $50 for the year, $100. We share that. That allows us to save the money we make from our jobs and invest it elsewhere, so we don't have to invest in this business. And hopefully one day this becomes the occupation, so that we can continue to engage with our vocation, which is deeper than just this. The ministry, that's what the vocation is. Worship.
Yeah, man. There's so much to come. I want to wrap this up by talking about you and me, how we got here.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I started getting involved with the church that we both go to after I got out the truck. And Nathanael was around, but one Sunday, we just got into a conversation before church, and then we didn't even go into the sermon. We just talked the whole time. And
before that, the reason I met you in the first place was because I was at a meeting to deal with my pornography addiction. Kaya. Shout out to Justin Simmons and your brother as well. And that was, when I heard that I could deal with it, I was ready to tackle it, because I had grown to hate how much it was holding me captive. And I didn't know how much, how bad it was, you know. You don't know how much the cigarettes are, destroying your lungs until you're drowning and you can't breathe. So
yeah. And so he saw me in the bathroom. I brought, we only had one car, and I brought my ukulele to those meetings, and I wouldn't go because I had my own system for getting free from pornography and my own meetings that I went to. I would just go to the meetings. I'd be there, but I had my ukulele, and I'd be in the bathroom playing the ukulele, singing at the top of my lungs. People would come in and out, and I'd just be in there playing music. Great acoustics in that bathroom. And he came in there and saw me, and that's when we first kind of met. But then at the church, we talked, and we both had our individual artist pursuits, and we would just talk about it. And so from time to time, we would just talk and kind of encourage each other.
Well, so I have a story behind that, which is I went to a men's retreat, and everybody shared their witness, their testimony, and it was incredible. And Monsignor, the executive pastor of St. Monica's Catholic Church, said that every month for 35 years, he met with 7 men in the archdiocese, and that is what he attributes to his success with St. Monica's having like almost 200 different ministries and being around. And there was an earthquake and it all crumbled and they rebuilt it, and just what he's been able to do. So I said, I need to have that. And so I made a list of men, and I said, I want to start with 1 and build to 12 and meet monthly. And I started thinking about those things, and I asked someone, they said no. And then based on the conversations we were having, I said, why don't I do this? And I pitched it to you, and you said, yeah.
Yeah. And Nathanael would come to me, and he would pitch ideas to me. And then it went from that to us talking once per week, just to keep each other accountable, and to talk about whatever we were pursuing artistically and just things we were learning in general. And so we would talk once a week. And then that evolved to talking every day to the fourth quarter of last year's. We just started talking every day. Every single day.
Well,
you would call me. Mostly you called me. Thank you for that, by the way. And us talking eventually led to us realizing that we had shared goals. We had shared values, and that we might want to team up. In all my pursuits, trying to figure out how to do music and all the other stuff in life at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I got to get out of all these different systems and organizations I'm a part of and make room for just me pursuing my artistry independently. But that was not going well, trying to do it by myself. And I know myself enough to know that I work better in small teams. I'm not like that lone wolf character. So I came to Nathanael and said, hey, do you want to join forces? And he was like, okay, yeah, well, I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. And we just started having those conversations every day. And that, having those conversations, we just started to make a business plan. Then all of a sudden we had a 6-month plan of how we were going to work it out. And then we just started working on step 1, step 2, step 3, every little thing. And it just became a business naturally. And I think it was because I give glory to God, because I was able to recognize that just through a conversation that and natural brotherhood, that this was somebody who I need to walk alongside in carrying out my calling and my mission. And assist with him with his calling and his mission, because they resonate with each other. They actually work well together. So and now we are here.
And every time I said the idea to you, it was clarified further, and it got narrower, yet left more room for exploration. The focus got narrower, which allowed for more. So it's like the capacity of what was possible got heightened, even though the focus got smaller.
One of the best things
music works for you, and comedy does not have to be forsaken. You know what I mean? Like, all these things, all these callings that God put on our heart are still true, and there is a vehicle to support them.
Yeah. And Yeah, so since I got out of the truck in December 2022, and now it's December 2024. It's been 2 years in this transition period where the vision that God gave me for how I was going to be able to have a career in music, like he gave me a vision and he told me to write it down. So I did write it down. It's been 2 years since then, but what I am doing with you now matches that vision that I wrote down perfectly. And, I was using my faith, and I was like being super specific because I thought I was moving to Dallas. So I was talking about, I'm going to do this in Dallas. I'm going to do that in Dallas. I'm in LA still. I'm in Culver City. And if I literally just change some of the specific things, it matches perfectly, And it's just so funny. Like when God gives you a vision, it's true even before it comes to pass. And you literally don't really have to do that much except move when you are being led to see it come to fruition. There's this thing called teleology. If you just speak what you know you are going to be in the future, then it'll just happen naturally.
I was praying, and if you come with a truly repentant heart and sacrifice everything at the altar at Jesus' feet, ask and it shall be given, or keep asking is what Peterson will say. It's more translated as keep asking persistently. It is granted in heaven, but the same way there's layers of maps on top of it. It manifests, that word, you don't manifest it necessarily. Manifest means to make real with the work of your hands. So let's get that out of the way. Mani means your hands. Mm-hmm. So you cannot manifest unless you do it with the work of your hands. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just to... But it becomes real and we experience it and it unfolds as a story. Mm-hmm. But in heaven, there is no time. Mm-hmm. What's done is done. Light moves in an instant. Mm-hmm. So Jesus goes before you. It already happens. Now we get to walk through it as a story, and we get to experience as a story. And there's pain, mm-hmm. and there's sorrow, and there's joy, and there's all these movements like a music, and there's dynamics and mm-hmm. all these things. And the same way you watch a movie and you're like, oh my God, all hope is lost. Wait, it's a movie. Of course it's going to end well, but I don't even know. What if it doesn't end well? You know it's going to end well.
Yeah.
It's a movie. You paid money. They're not going to screw you over. People told you to go because it ends well. Mm-hmm. So does Revelation. It ends well, but
the ending actually determines what kind of story it is.
Yes.
That too, and then like, because it's kind of relative. Like a good tragedy is a tragedy because it ends badly. It ends very badly, but it's still a good story because the ending let you know what kind of story it was. And there's a lot of value in a good tragedy because a good tragedy is a very, very good thing to not do. You know what I'm saying? But I actually like tragedies in a way, even though I don't like the ride that they take you on. Yeah. I do not like that ride. But when I look at the whole thing after everything's said and done, I like a good tragedy. Yeah.
And that's where this vision of this paraprosdokian is, mm-hmm. this idea to be a documentarian of the smallest unit of story, mm-hmm. which is a one-liner. Mm-hmm. I mean, the shortest story they always quote is for sale, baby shoes, never worn. Mm-hmm. It's 3 acts. For sale, first act, baby shoes, second act, never worn. Mm-hmm. And it's a reversal, and it unfolds, and it's like the most compressed file, mm-hmm. and you unravel it and it just like you can explode an entire thing. Or music, you're compressing so much. And so it's wonderful. It like mm-hmm. just gets stuck in your head and you're like, mm-hmm. wow. And so sort of what we're doing or planning to do mm-hmm. is to take people's story, their testimony, and start with the fullness of it, and slowly, with the help of them, whittle it down into something that is bite-sized, concise, small, that they can present. And it's filled with dynamics and flair and music and storytelling, and it can be told in all these different ways because it has each stem. It's like you can take all the stems and remix it and do it this way and this way and this way, but you have to start with the fullness of it, and you have to put it in the light of truth to pursue the highest good, because that is what is at the culmination of it, and you cannot tell the story effectively without that, because it will not feed other people in the process. And if you do it and you just go, I just told my story, but there's no resolution, there's no high good, then you will leave and everyone's going, great job, you're so talented, and you'll leave going, I hate myself, I don't feel worthy. And that's what I did. And then you get off stage and everyone's like, you're so funny. It's like, I want to die. What good is it? It healed somebody else. I'm broken.
Yeah. One thing I've learned is that stories never really end. There's no truth. The ending is kind of a fallacy, because, like, just based off the fact that my story ties deeply into your story, which is going to, us telling our stories is going to affect their story, and like it all is weaved together in some master story that keeps going even after we're all dead, you know?
That's my theory of DNA and like epigenetics, is that it is just the encoding of your life story, but then there's epigenetic markers on top of it. And so there's different variations within the movements of it, but it's still mapped out, right? And then you live your story and it reaches a thing, and then you meet a wife and it combines, and then you create a new story and you imbue that to your child. And it's like literally encoded into the strands of your being, and you just get to walk it out.
That's so interesting, because you said the unit. What did you say? You used the word unit in
the smallest unit.
Yeah, like a story really is just taking the story and taking a little unit out of it and just telling that in truth with whatever flair you want to put on there and whatever style, whatever is sensible to you, and then serving that up. But like that small piece. Like, that small piece of the story has so much juice in it, and that juice in and of itself is valuable. It's thrilling, just a small piece, small unit.
Yeah, it's stored information that you can compress so that it's easily transferable. I'm thinking about all this tech stuff because we're wiring all this stuff, but it's stored information compressed into an easily transferable form so that you can give it to somebody else. They can plug it into the interface that they're part of, that's powered by God, and it unzips, and all of a sudden, bam, they can live it out. And so I went to that gaming industry talk, and somebody talked about how with games, like everybody's at a different part in the game, but they're all playing the same game. And so there's a shared understanding. Whereas in a movie, it's the same hour and a half. Everybody touches base on the same thing. Have you watched the whole movie? The game, you might not be finished it. And I immediately thought of testimony, like our walk with Christ. We're all at different parts. And how do you listen to somebody's story and they're talking about something you've never experienced yourself, and yet somehow you emotionally, on the other layers of it, outside of the material and the physical, you have experienced it. You have experienced every other level of resonance except the physical material part. And once you listen to their story, you enter into that. And now you get to experience that. If they compress it into a song, into a presentation, into a word, into a parable, into a paraprostokian, into those things, now you get to play the game too. So you're going to do this, tell your testimony through song, deliver it, and we're going to deliver the stories that we've been participating in ways that are palatable and fruitful and sweet and able to be entered into safely so that other people can have the courage to continue walking in the game that they're part of.
Yeah. And I don't just want to tell my story. What's cool about music is that you can layer stories, other people's stories, onto one song. It doesn't even matter where and when they are. Like, it could be a historical character. Like, you can layer your own experience on top of your perceived experience of somebody else in order to create a song. And a song is a story. If you try to make a song not a story, it's going to take away from the quality of the song. But I want to not just make my story through music. I want to layer the experience of me and my collaborators. I'm a collaborator at heart. Like I said, I work best in small teams. I want to be surrounded with everybody who is as committed and as deeply committed to making the music that will tell the story. What do we say? Tell the story.
Live. You're saying live to tell the tale. Tell the tale to truly live.
Yes. This lifestyle of living to tell the tale and telling the tale to truly live through music as the vehicle. I want to be surrounded by those people, collaborate them, and literally layer stories, all of our stories on top, and put this music out. I want to be in a network, in a community, whether it's online from a distance or literally in the room, like I am in the room with you, collaborating with people, making these stories through music for my whole life. That's what my life is about. So, if that's you, hit me up.
Yeah. You
know who you are.
We want to tell stories of a life well lived. And we do not want to sacrifice living a life well just to tell some extravagant story that has no resolution, that is not life-giving, and that does nothing to correctly and purposefully wield the talents and gifts that God has given us. And that is part of my testimony, which is that the most talented, well-crafted jokesmiths and musicians and this that I knew committed suicide. We should end on this. One of them shot himself in a Tesla. That's a reference to something.
Shot himself in a Tesla.
Yeah. So what good is the career? What good is the vehicle if you're not putting the right fuel in it and you get to your destination and the car's totaled and there's nothing left to go for? No. We have to be able to get up the mountain and get back down so we can take other people with us so that they don't have to suffer the same consequences that we did, because we got up that hill with a limp. If we can get up that hill with a limp, come with us. It's possible. So that's our mission right now, is to show people that it is possible to live a life well and live to tell the tale and be unashamed of it. And if we can, you can too. And in fact, you must. You must. There is no other way to do it. If your music does not get used for the kingdom, it will get used to tear it down.
Only two options: life or death.
Only two options. Choose life. All right. Well, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
All right.
PPDK. Press play.
On your purpose. See you guys soon.
Next week on From Work to Worship, Nehemiah flips the script and receives Nathanael's testimony, investigating the ways in which the Lord imbued Nathanael with the gifts of provoking laughter and insight within the warm walls of a story. Find out how we continue to fight and overcome on next week's episode of From Work to Worship. Pick up the call, take up your sword, and go on the adventure of a lifetime. This has been a PPDK Productions original. Follow us as we climb the tallest mountains, slay the fiercest dragons, and pursue the highest good while confronting the greatest evil we've ever known. Join us at ppdkproductions.com. Press play on your purpose.
Press play on your purpose.